Hi guys, Lou here and welcome back to Acorn Hill. It's the first day of spring and there are certain posts through my vlogs that I look forward to, and today is the first day of spring 2021 that I couldn't wait to film and let you know what's up in the garden. Back in the fall I planted several bulbs in pots and I applied what's called Lasagna pot planting method, and I wanted to show you today the results of my efforts from the fall. I'll show you my choice of plants and the different pots and containers that I planted them in. Spring has already heralded this morning and we have a bright, partly cloudy sky here in North Carolina, and I want to show you the plants that are in bloom, the plants that are now kicking up their gear and have the rhythm of spring already in their step. So I couldn't wait to show you what we have in the garden. We still have a few areas where projects are being done and projects are being completed, but no matter, today's the day. Welcome spring, welcome to all of you who are fellow gardeners who are out there populating this platform with good vibes and good videos and good learning for all of us to apply during these very unusual times. So without further ado, I wanted to show you what spring looks like in the back garden here in Acorn Hill. If you like the videos that I put out, check out the other videos that I have on my channel, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Part of what I do in spring to ease winter out is my yearly ritual of pruning my Espalier apples. These apples are the ones that I planted about 4 years ago, and late winter, early spring is the best time to prune them, to shape them. This is when the apples haven't really grown yet, but this flush of growth for the coming spring and summer, it will also produce more fruit, and I'm hoping that this year we will have some fruits being born by these apple trees. So
pruning apple trees in spring will help to improve its shape, reduce its size, and promote better quality fruit. Thinning out some of these branches will channel the plant's energy into fewer but better apples and will improve air circulation through the center of the tree to limit pests and disease problems. Pruning apple trees in winter or in early spring also gives us an opportunity to identify and cut out any broken, weak, or cankered growth. And because this is a pair of Espalier trees, my goal is to cut out branches that are moving away from the plane of the wall. Anything that has grown away or into the wall needs to be removed and pruned. In Espalier pruning, reducing the height of the leading shoot and cutting back side branches channels the sap back into the lower buds. This will encourage stronger, thicker main shoots and prevents unnecessary top growth, redirecting energy to other growth points. So to keep the method simple, I identified the previous year's shoots by tracing down from the tips to find the growing point. I then shortened these stems to around half their length, cutting just above the outward facing bud. Pretty simple. I've been doing this pruning of the apple trees for 4 years now, and it feels right as rain. It is a welcome prelude to the arrival of spring that I simply just cannot deny. And on a good weather and bright blue sky like this is one task I don't mind doing. Back in the fall, apart from the regular grocery item and big box item tulips and other bulbs that I ordered, I also went online and ordered a few from another reputable source. I ordered from this company special hyacinths and tulips that are flown and grown directly from Holland. At the time that I'm showing you this actual clip, I've already finished planting all my tulip bulbs in the landscape. But today I wanted to do a special project called Lasagna bulb planting. A great way to get a succession of blooms all spring is to plant up one large container with several layers of different bulbs. It gives you a maximum flower power in a small space. In this practical tip, I wanted to show you how I go through the process of creating a layered spring container display that starts with these hyacinths that I've just gotten from this reputable source on the internet. So bearing in mind that I wanted this pot to have its full flower power, I wanted to make sure that I got good soil with good amendments using the plant tone that I showed you, and also make sure that the drainage is good. This is one of my favorite resin pots in the garden, and so what I did was created a big hole on the bottom. I covered the bottom hole with Crocus to make sure we don't have any soil leaking out, and now I'm putting mulch or bark. I filled the bottom of the pot up with mulch or wood chips about 1/3 of the way up. After this, it's a good idea that we add general purpose compost to the container until it's about 1/3 of the way full. This would be on top of the bark and the mulch that we put on the bottom. I put a good sprinkling of plantain. This will be the feed that the bulbs will get their energy from throughout the fall and winter before springtime. And after this, it's as simple as dropping all the bulbs that I have. This would be hyacinths and tulips that we will now plant one next to each other and then another layer on top, creating the layering, the lasagna that I was talking about. So in the clip, I just showed you finishing the first layer, which would be the tulips on the bottom layer, and now we're getting ready for hyacinths to go right on top. Another extra sprinkling of plantain, and this would be now the feed that the hyacinths will grow on, and then we put all the hyacinth bulbs right on top. And after that's done, all we have to do is cover them all up with a good layer of compost. Dig, drop, and done. Late February, end of March saw the arrival of these early tulips in our backyard. If you guys still remember, these are the same tulips that I planted in this reconstructed garden bed from bulbs that I got in the fall. These were bulbs that I got from Costco, and the way they're looking at the moment, I know that the use of bone meal and the use of blood meal in this garden bed has really proven beneficial. Meanwhile, on our front yard, on our garden bed that I built 3 years ago, we got these crocuses that I also planted 3 years ago that have emerged. Crocuses give so much for little money that you spend on them because they bring a burst of color to the garden either in the spring or in the autumn. Currently, I am cultivating all these spring crocuses, and these purple white ones have actually self-hybridized from the original ones that I got 3 years ago. I very much like the position that I did for these crocuses because they provide a much needed source of nectar and pollen for pollinating insects that are just emerging from hibernation. I planted these crocus corms in moist but well-draining soil in full sun. I planted the corms at the depth of 3 times their own size. One can also grow crocus at the front border, naturalizing in grass or in pots. As a general rule, and I always advise folks that plant corms and bulbs, I always let the foliage die back completely after the flowers have gone. And as I always say in the past, these leaves will collect the energy being given off by the sun. Photosynthesis will allow sugars to draw from the leaves and go all the way back into the bulbs. We're still taking a tour of the front of our house, and on one of the garden beds that I also built, the same way I built the other ones with the crocus, we have these tete-a-tete daffodils. Nothing signals the arrival of spring in a surefire way to cure our winter doldrums better than the arrival of these daffodils. These tete-a-tete daffodils, the mini ones, are the first to appear, followed by the bigger daffodils that I planted in this garden bed. Daffodils can be grown as a cut flower, which means the bulbs can be planted much closer together than one would normally do. In principle, like all bulbs, daffodils prefer good drainage and somewhere not too dry. Again, I used my secret ingredient, blood meal and bone meal, in order for these workhorses to get all the nutrition they need for a really busy season. These very adaptable and very reliable plants are not too fussy. You give them the sun, you give them water, you give them bone meal, and they will grow just about anywhere. The first set of tulips that I showed you earlier was located on the opposite side of this screen that I'm showing you at the moment. On this side, these are the purple tulips that I planted the same way I planted the ones that I showed earlier. They also came from Costco. They are growing really vigorously right now. Tall stems, deep green, very healthy foliage with very heavy and substantial flowers. I'm very pleased with the way these plants are growing. The stems are strong because the heavy bulbs, the heavy flowers are being very well supported by these stems. And just look at that vista right there. The neutral gray tan color of the screen, the big purple flowers, the green of the leaves, plus what is beyond this is our dry garden, along with the punctuation of aqua from our Tuscan pots. And for me, this view is worth it from all the hard work that I did in the fall in planting them. For me, one of the many joys of gardening is this right here, planting and planning ahead. Planting tulips is one way to prepare my outdoor space for the beautiful display come spring. And now that it's springtime, it is doing what it's supposed to do. It doesn't get much more satisfying than anticipating these delights that have now arrived. The need to know for tulip growers, and again I will say this the same way I have given my tips planting the daffodils, they require good drainage. The soil in this garden bed is very heavy clay, and so I outsmarted clay by elevating the garden area through a raised garden bed. On the bottom of this bed, I put in heaps and heaps of grit, gravel, and rocks. Then I put in topsoil mixed in with compost, then mixed in 30 pounds of both bone meal and plantain. I put these bulbs back in October and November, and so that gave the bulbs enough time to hibernate and really develop their root system with the help of the bone meal, and here's the result. Remember the pale colored tulips that I showed you earlier? They were taken 3 days prior to this current clip that I'm showing, and look at the color that we now have. They're now getting more intense in their peach, orange, and natural apricot color. The previous clip was taken in the morning. This clip, same day, and look how open and wide the petals are. This gets full sun in the afternoon, causing the petals to really come in full bloom and really open up. Here's another good proof as to why I use bone meal in planting bulbs. Look at the extra flower that I got from this one singular bulb benefiting from the bone meal and blood meal that it's sitting in. I really like the way the color came out from this bulb. On the picture of the bulb, it's only purple, but one never imagines that magenta and purple can be combined. The added bonus is the interior of this bulb. The blossom has all these intricate patterns. That bright yellow on the center really gives it a good pop. Moving right along, we are still in the backyard, and now we go to the dry section of the garden. Remember the pot that I planted with bulbs back in the fall using the Lasagna application? Well, here it is now. All this foliage comes from tulips. These are the first to come up, and pretty soon they will be followed by hyacinths that are on the center of this pot. This was a week ago. Now let me show you what they all look like. All planted in pots with well-draining soil, a lot of bone meal, a lot of sun, and these hyacinths have just bursted out of the top of the pot. Plump, bold, intense in color. You can see, I wish that you could smell the fragrance coming out of these flowers right now. They are heady, heavily scented. Some people don't like the strong scent of hyacinths, but for me, it is one of the scents of spring combined with the faint smell of daffodils. It is a good day to be out in the garden just looking at these plants. Now beside our group of potted hyacinths is its cousin. It's the grape hyacinth. These are leftover hyacinths from last year. I did not get to plant muscaris this year, but with all the bone meal that's still contained in this pot, they're still alive and they're still able to produce flowers for this season. Full sun, well-draining soil, and still this is what we get. Now let's go to the very back corner of our garden. I'll show you a plant that on its own, it was a volunteer plant that grew, and now I have these blossoms. This comes from a flowering pear tree. This volunteer flowering pear tree is one of two that grew in our garden. I'm assuming it's carried by the birds because we have a lot of birds passing through and flying around our neighborhood. But this started growing 4 years ago, and now I have this one tree that gives us this nice pop of color with blossoms at the very back corner of our garden. And panning across our property, here is the other pear tree. Already mature, fully grown, and it's already on its 4th year. This is more than 20 feet tall. It landed, I guess there's a seed that landed along the middle span of our retaining wall, and we just let it grow, and now we have this big, full, big mass of white and green growing every spring that is a welcome addition along our elevated garden. Behind this Bradford pear, the flowering pear, is the tutor that I made last year. On this tutor, I have a David Austin climbing rose that I will give you an update on when it's rose season sometime this year. On the other side of the Bradford pear, I wanted to show you what's growing on the pergola that I also built last year. Already on its 2nd year, these roses that I planted, this is the Eden David Austin rose that I planted on the right side of the pergola. It's growing right now, and I wanted to show you what it looks like on the top plane of this pergola. It really shows the technique that I applied last year, where I had to do basic angulation of the primary canes, and now you can see the secondary canes growing from top of them. This is the best way to get more flowers this coming year, and all I had to do this year was prepare the soil with good all-purpose fertilizer and rose stone. On the other side, this pergola just shows you a longer stretch of the New Dawn rose that I planted last year. For some reason, the New Dawn is more vigorous growing than the Eden climbing rose. Both are alive, both are healthy, but by way of it being more vigorous, the New Dawn really packs a punch. The easiest trick to getting more roses out of a climbing rose is to have the primary canes be planted and be situated horizontally. These horizontal branches right now are giving off smaller branches that will contain the flowers for this coming year. Right, and any spring garden wouldn't be complete without this vibrant yellow flowers given off by the classic forsythia. Growing season 2021 will be the 2nd formal year of Acorn Hill, and last year we decided to get a lot of these forsythias grown in half-a-gallon cans for $3 each. Forsythias are woody perennials, and they are deciduous, meaning they will die back, they will lose all their leaves, and next year we will have them again. Moving along our theme of yellow flowering plants, who doesn't love daffodils? These daffodils are on its 2nd year as well. I planted them last year, made sure that I had a lot of bone meal underneath the bulb, and this year I didn't even fertilize them, and look at how they are right now. It is premature, but I wanted to show you what they look like prior to them opening up. I think there's an understated casual feel to an unopened daffodil, and these are what they look like. And here's another exciting thing. Just behind and beyond these daffodils, we can see the beginnings of our herbaceous peonies that have just broken dormancy. These are 2-year-old peonies, and last year when I got them, I thought that they're not gonna take off, but I got them from a good grower on the internet, and now from the original 3 eyes or 3 stems that came from this plant that you're seeing, now they're tripled, and now I have several that I will expect to bloom this year. Our Tuscan blue pots, a signature in the garden, which are not planted with daylilies, and these daylilies will be blooming with orange flowers, and that should be a good striking color with the orange, green, and blue of these pots. And one little section in the garden that's been planted with grocery available tulips. These are regular grocery tulips that I got. Planted them late, and that's why the stems are very short at the moment. They did not have enough hibernation time to go with them. But the blooms are on. Nice vibrant red, and beyond that you have another set of purple flowers, not similar to the purple and magenta that I showed earlier, but these are performing fairly all right. At least we got good flowers on them, albeit the stems are very short. If you happen to like the videos that I put out on our channel, I hope you would consider subscribing. The channel is growing and we have viewers coming from different parts of the world, and I really appreciate you being a part of the circle. We have a lot of good content and material all piled up in the editing room, but we will be putting those out and all of us will learn a lot and something new this coming year. Oh, and I almost forgot, underneath our Espalier trees by the West Garden, here are the ruffled daffodils that I got from another grocery store. These are big and they have grown fairly well. I'm very happy with them, albeit the ruffles are a little disheveled right now. This is being battered by the wind. I had no idea that this section of the garden has a little wind tunnel. That's what's happening to the petals of this daffodil. For some reason this year, I noticed that daffodils and forsythias have a later bloom schedule compared to the other bulbs, but no matter, I wanted to show you at least a bloom or two of the daffodils so that you'd see the success that I've gotten just from planting them with bone meal and blood meal. I hope you enjoyed my little bulb tour, plant tour, pot tour of the garden today. Hopefully next year we can show you a better view and vistas of our garden. I have a couple of construction DIY projects happening that I figured showing you just the plants themselves and the tulips and the bulbs would be a good way to introduce you to spring 2021 here in the garden. So until next time, this is Louie thanking you for the pleasure of your company in my video. Happy spring, and we'll see you back here in Acorn Hill. Bye-bye for now.